the cloud. All right, now
Cool.
we are.
Thank you.
Awesome. Okay, so just circling back, so this is on the recording. So in terms of getting organized for the hackathon, we need to focus on getting sort of our major checkboxes in order so that we can actually go and apply for sponsorships. So the first step is the location. So who in Fairbanks is able to touch bases on that?
Yeah, so we have an idea. We are going to try and get the Wood Center ballroom. If
Okay.
that doesn't work, we have a few backup plans, and that'll be all free.
Okay. Arsh, I would also really like to push for the CS people who are organizing the hackathon to join the hackathon Slack organizers channel. I feel like we've got a bit of a bottleneck because it's sort of like, passes through you to talk to them. And I think that's okay. But at the same time, like it might just.
Jeff, you froze.
Oh, hang on one second.
Yeah.
Did it come back?
Yeah, you're back now.
Okay. So did you guys hear that last piece I just said?
No, you cut out.
Okay. I was just saying, can we get the CS folks up in Fairbanks to join the hackathon Slack channel?
Yeah, I'll try.
Okay. I think that would be huge because I kind of feel like there's just a disconnect in the organizing. So
Also, real quick, Arsh, me and you should probably meet up so I know who's working on the UAF and also, how's things looking so far? Because another the month's over. So are you still able to stick with us or?
Oh, me?
Yeah.
As of now, yes.
Okay. But I want to work with you
that's
more
good
closely
news.
just in case, so I can take over whatever you need to, or I need to take more from you.
I mean, Matt's there, and he's on the call right now. So,
I'll meet with you guys at UAF.
all right.
Cool. Yeah, and let's circle back on that toward the end of the meeting. I think that's something worth discussing, how we handle changeover and transition, because it's going to start happening sooner than later. At the very least, Arsh is graduating this year, so we need to start thinking about that. But okay, so back to hackathon stuff. So Arsh, you're going to take over location and getting that dialed, and also trying to get the Fairbanks guys to come up or to join the Slack channel.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Link and I guess it'd just be you for now, Link. Can you start looking around UAA and talking to professors about location in Anchorage? I can also help make connections, but I don't have time to necessarily secure the space.
Yeah, no, that shouldn't be a problem. Last year when we were talking about it, we were going to use a couple of rooms in the engineering or one of the engineering buildings, and they were super cool with that. I'll talk to Mock about it primarily, but yeah, I think it shouldn't be an issue. How many people are we looking at potentially? Do you have any idea?
What did the numbers from Fairbanks say?
Last year we had around 40 people sign up, and like around 30 showed up.
That's pretty good. Did anybody? I haven't read through the documents from Launch Alaska recently. I think they had some of their demographics in there too, didn't they?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think that it was more about what happened at the. I don't think it had demographic information. It's been a while since I read it though.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I would assume that in Anchorage we would end up to probably a similar number. But I mean, it really wouldn't surprise me if we ended up with more. Where that does sort of leave us is just sort of dealing with more budget for food. But I think if we can come up with a reasonable like number per head, that's not necessarily that difficult to pull off.
Yeah, I agree. And then later this week, I will at the CS Club meeting, I will get the get the Slack distributed and get more of the people from the CS Club in Anchorage actually on the Slack channel.
Yeah. Arsh, can I have you add something to the end of today's agenda?
Yep.
Conroy mentioned sort of a welcoming committee for the Dev Alliance. And I think that also flows into exactly what Link was just saying, where like we haven't created a pipeline to get incoming CS students to join us. So I think we need to talk about that. So yeah, we'll circle back on that after we sort of get the hackathon stuff taken care of. So let's talk like reasonable timelines for some of the deliverables on the hackathon. I think, so it's already the first week in September. I think that we need to probably have our location dialed by next Monday or Tuesday for both places. I think reasonably, we probably need to start advertising coming up very soon. We need to send out this month's newsletter. So I think we should probably announce the hackathon next week. So I think what I'm going to do, because I still am working on getting up some of the attendance for the Golang bootcamp, I am going to send out a newsletter or more likely just sort of another advertisement for the Golang. And then let's plan on sending out like the normal monthly newsletter on the 10th. And then we'll announce the hackathon on that same newsletter and send out the 2019 Developer Alliance survey.
Is that, you said 3 emails?
That way, as long as we've got the location, we can. No, that's 2 emails. So one will just be sort of to get more people to come to the Golang bootcamp, and then the other one will be the newsletter as well, announcing the hackathon and asking people to take the Alliance survey.
Cool. And
yeah.
When is
did you?
That Golang pre thing? Is that this coming Saturday, the 7th?
That is this coming Saturday, the 7th.
Okay.
Let's also circle back on that. Arsh, can you add this to the end of the agenda as well? Is just review the Golang bootcamp and potentially housing for people from out of town.
When is the date for the hackathon? Is it selected yet? Is a solid date for when it's going to happen?
Yeah, so it's the 11th, 12th, and 13th
of October.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What time does it start on the 11th?
I mean, I would assume we sort of want to start it in the evening. One of the questions we should really think about is the format of the hackathon. We've tossed a handful of ideas out there so far, and I think we really need to commit to what that looks like, because we need to be able to pitch this to our sponsors. So one of the deciding factors is, do we want people to know what the ideas are before they actually come together to start working? And I tend to think that that's not a bad way to go. One of the things that we've talked about is this idea of a stackathon, where we try to stack teams with, senior and junior devs, maybe a designer, maybe a front end, maybe a back end, maybe somebody who does a little bit, with DevOps or something, and actually try to build out good teams. Sorry, not good teams, but well-rounded teams. so that at the end of the weekend, we can hopefully show good strides in progress. So that is something we should think about. And I think that also sort of changes the time that we might start on Friday too. Because if on Friday we need to learn about the idea, understand it, choose a team, I think that is something that that should start earlier. But if it's sort of like, we already know what the idea is, we had, a social earlier in the week to sort of like form a team, figure out what we want to work on, then maybe Friday is a little bit more casual, and it's like we all get together on Friday at 7 p.m. We have an announcement and sort of kickoff, and then we all get started. I tend to think that is going to give us better results. But that also means that, we need to host a mixer earlier in the week, and that's more logistics, especially because it's statewide. So that's something to think about.
So I just checked the co-working calendar, and I actually just booked somebody for the 11th through 13th for that whole weekend.
Oh, wow.
They haven't signed the contract yet, so maybe it might fall through, but I might look at alternative things for Juno.
Okay. How many people do you anticipate for Juno?
I'd be surprised if there's more than 3 of us.
Okay. So potentially that's not necessarily a limiting factor. Space should be something that we can figure out. Yeah?
Yeah, we can definitely figure it out.
Okay.
One
Go ahead.
thing, so at a hackathon I went to at Drexel University, the first day they focused on something where they used city data, where they used housing data and stuff like that, and how do you build an app that will tell you if this is a good neighborhood to move to or something like that, or maybe it was like some sort of public data that the government provides that you would use as a data set and build an app around it, or you can bring in your own idea and build an application for that on the weekend. But the first day, it wasn't that much of an introduction. It was more like they had people there. They had some speakers, talked about entrepreneurship and shit like that. And then they had the kickoff, and people started just programming until the weekend was over. At the end of the weekend, they chose some people to be final winners or whatever to go present their idea, like 6 other teams. But that could be a possible format where we use open data that Fairbanks can provide us in Anchorage and Juneau.
Well, so I mean that sort of hackathon sort of revolves around getting everybody to try and solve the same problem, correct?
No, they can choose different problems they want to approach.
Okay.
The one problem me and my cousin approached was the housing one. Some people used their own ideas. Like another person was working on an app to look at music and lyrics for them. So it was anything you could do. Plus there was this option, hey, if you don't have an idea, here's some data that you can use as a data set to build something.
Right. Well, and I think that's also, so one of the things we also need to do is have like a problem set of like potential things to work on. People need to be able to choose, but I think we need to start soliciting for ideas for things that could be worked on. Arsh, can you add that to the checklist of things for the hackathon? So the idea being that we have a handful of projects that are already like people have said that they want to work on this, and then other people can look at them, understand the problem. This, I think, was what took a lot of the work for the Launch Alaska Hackathon, was that people had like really concrete, well-defined problems that they wanted help with. And so, we need to decide, like, I don't think that it's necessary to do the full, 1 page on each problem type of thing. I think this is where having a social or having like an online gathering where people who have ideas can just sort of pitch. And maybe that's how we do the social. maybe instead of actually meeting in person, if, we've got a potential of, 80 people, maybe we just do a big Zoom conference, and we announce what the ideas are and sort of introduce the format.
I just want to say, I think I said this last time, but I don't want it to be confused with a startup weekend or focusing on like a business idea to make.
Right.
I think if it's focused on, I want to try a new technology, or I have this cool tool I want to make, or data I want to play with or something, I think that's completely different.
Yeah.
But that would be my concern, especially since I think everybody's having, I think there's the startup week, right, is in November. So just about a month later.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that's a super important point, that it's easy to start slipping into that. So I think, stepping back for a moment, we should decide, how are we going to judge and decide if we've had a successful hackathon? And this is probably just a bullet point list, but I'm actually asking. Conroy, what would make the hackathon weekend successful for you?
So if I were to think about what I would personally want to get out of it, I think I posted this in one of the Slack channels, but there's a new language called Svelte, and I'd love to build some sort of simple little tool using that, or like something in Gatsby, right? For me, it would be, I talk about these things, but I never take the time to actually use them. I never give myself an excuse to use them. So that's what I would use this hackathon for, is an excuse to try some new technology that I've wanted to for a while.
Okay. Arsh, what would make it successful for you?
Yeah, it's similar to what Conroy said. Try technologies and then, maybe get some sort of an MVP that you can show off.
Okay. Vincent. You there, Vince?
Nope, he dropped out.
Oh, no. All right. How about Link?
I just say it happening. Like if we can
participating.
Fairbanks, Wasilla, and as a participant. Getting a small team together and like actually making something.
Hey, sorry about that. Wait,
Hey, Vince.
my computer froze.
No worries, man.
Yeah, but just having some people make something from it. At least you learn something while they're there, and at least get a team together that later on they can work with afterwards. I think it's a good thing to get out of it.
Okay. Sorry, Arsh, are you recording these by any chance?
Yep.
Okay, cool. So for me, and I've talked about this concept a lot, my vision of success is that by the end of this, you've had mentors seniors who have mentored juniors. You have people who have actually attempted to build an MVP, sort of in the bootstrap sense, right? Like prove that you can get your idea to function. And then the third is sort of what Vince said, which is having people who want to work together. And for me, this falls very much in line of sort of pushing the Developers Alliance from all these sort of ad hoc technologies to now we've got groups of people similar to like indie hackers who are actually building ideas. And so to me, this is like that building block. And the goal is to engage younger, more junior programmers with seniors and actually build something over the course of a weekend so that they can either learn how does a senior approach a problem, or how much can you actually get done. And I think that there's two ways to frame that. So one is either, seniors mentoring juniors, or the other is getting a well-rounded team together to see what you can all actually create in a weekend. So for instance, I would think that, a junior-senior relationship could look like, say you're working on a relatively boring established technology, right? Ruby on Rails or C# MVP or something. Having a senior who maybe floats around and helps those teams or works on those teams would be awesome in case they get stuck. On the flip side of that, though, if you have juniors and seniors working together to learn a new technology, to me that seems like a win as well. And on the very last piece, it's like, well, if you've got 3 or 4 people who are, say seniors to juniors, who your goal is to build a thing, right? And you understand the technology and you're just trying to like have a thing to show at the end of a weekend, that's also a definition of success. So, I think those all are pretty well aligned, right? Like we're more focused on technology than we are on necessarily proving out a business model, which I think is very important. So the next question is, if you're trying, if this is how we're framing the problem, how do we judge the winners? And maybe Vince, let's start with you. How would you judge? And sorry, let me step back. I don't necessarily know that we have a traditional first, second, and third. I think that there should maybe be different prizes that are just different things. But I'd love to hear what everybody else thinks in terms of how do we want to judge winning, losing, or just various prizes. Vince, what are your thoughts?
So I think it should be something with how far they got during the weekend, and also how they understand the topic they're presenting, as in, can they explain it clearly? Can they show like a computer illiterate user how to use it if it's something that they're going to be using? Things like that.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that a lot.
But more completeness, because it's a hackathon, so you're going to think, how much did they get the hack done? Did they not get the hack done? Things like that. 90%.
So,
whatever.
just to throw a wrench in that, one slight problem I see is that when you're judging completeness, the things that make a project seem complete are not necessarily the hurdles. And so if you spend all your time in the weeds working on, say, the super technical piece, and because of that, your app, you have to fake a bunch of stuff to demonstrate it, that might be one problem. So like how do we individually rank the completeness of somebody's project?
I would go with the use of the data set myself. How much they use the data set, if they got all the data points they wanted to map out or something like that. But
okay, so to me that sounds like we have somewhat of a barrier for describing the problem that you're working on. So we need to have some criteria for people describing what that problem is so that they can be judged against their own criteria. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, I have an idea for that. I think we should do on Friday night, they have, say, like a list of 3 requirements that they want to meet, that they turn in on Friday. That are 1 primary and 2 secondary. That way they can change and pivot as needed throughout the weekend. But that would be the criteria that we judge them on. And then I think that, like you were saying, we should have, say, 3 or 4 different awards, like came the farthest, or was the most original idea, or those kinds of things. That way, as long as they're still, we can award progress, not just maybe one team that only was the only team to finish. I don't know.
I also think that, maybe I think in a lot of these competitions, awards are really focused on, say, first, second, third. I think that awards should also be spread a little bit more evenly, like almost in like a flat distribution, right? So like I don't want to give out cash for any of the prizes, but I also don't think that it's necessarily worth waiting. First place, gets $3,000 and second place gets 1,500 and third place gets five. Like I don't necessarily think that that's such a great way to rank hackathons. So if we were to do this, I think we also need to come up with prizes that are relevant to the individual. And if you had a good team that you were working with, what prizes could we give out that would encourage the team to continue on with what they're working on, or even just continue to hang out and be friends, right? Like one of the things that the Dev Alliance is trying to do is establish these relationships among people. And so thinking about prizes, I would still think, okay, maybe there is like a first, second, and third, but then there's also maybe 10 or 15 prizes that aren't even on that ranking, right? Best mentor, or most improved, or best able to communicate, their Rube Goldberg contraption. And I think maybe that warrants sort of its own brainstorm, but I think that there's a lot of room for changing the dynamic within these hackathons by promoting collaboration, promoting mentors teaching juniors, and how do we judge and rank that? And maybe some of this, tying back into our 2019 developer survey, maybe we try to tie that data back. So maybe each team does a self-survey on the demographics of their team. And so that way we know each team has, one junior and two seniors. Or in the case where you have a team where only juniors wanted to work on this problem, right? So like that should be an award too. I don't, there's probably a funny phrase for it, but like sort of most naive would be like a funny prize for like a team of only juniors wanted to work on this one problem. And I think we should promote them for that.
What would be a good idea for that is probably different colored badges.
So each person self-identifies as a junior, a senior type of thing.
Yeah.
I like that. I also think having like a type form where, everybody just goes and fills that out real quick. So, okay, I'm on team number 1, here's my ability level type of thing. Or are you saying self-select, grab a badge with what your ability level is?
So self-select, because again, not to tie it too much in the startup weekend, but that's what they did. When I came in the startup weekend, it was like, are you a programmer, or are you not a programmer, or something like that. You kind of self-identify. They gave you a color badge.
Okay.
Mentor, because I came in as a mentor, so I had another badge type.
Got it. Yeah. Okay. So I like that idea. I think that makes a lot of sense. If our goal is learning and having more arbitrary awards, then knowing what the demographics are of the people who are participating is really helpful. And I think also this is going to give us more complete information for our developer survey, which is going to feed into the organizational mission. So I really like that idea. Okay, so So circling back, how are we going to do this? If we do an additional mixer night, I think things get complicated, or it might just be another kind of a lift. What are everybody's thoughts on trying to do a virtual meetup and introduce some of these projects on Friday versus just, let's all show up on Friday and we just go for it?
I think I like the introduction on Friday evening. Here at UAF, we are just trying to do it Saturday and Sunday just because school. But if
Okay.
we do Friday evening, I'm sure we could get most of our folks out because, classes end normally by that time.
Okay.
As for a virtual, I think for our demographic at UAF, doing it physically will be easy because we are mostly looking at like students and stuff based on last year. So for
Yeah.
us, a physical location will be fine, and then we can dial in with the statewide locations.
Okay. One of the potential challenges I see is, do we want to promote cross town, cross geography teams? Because if we do, then I think it is kind of important that, we probably need to send out a survey ahead of time to say, what's your idea, one paragraph, and then, have those out there for people to select. And then we hop on and sort of facilitate that right through the live stream. So the live stream is done in all three places, but we need to, come up with a space where people who want to work on an idea from Anchorage to Fairbanks can actually make that happen. And that should probably be an award as well.
Yeah, if there's interest cross location, we could potentially make that happen.
I just don't think if we don't advertise what the ideas are ahead of time, then it's going to be really difficult. We just won't be, I don't think we're going to have enough time to do pitches on Friday night and then form a team and then start working. 40 people is a lot. Adding in the digital component is going to be challenging. So I think in order to solve that problem, we maybe need to prepare ahead of time.
So what the folks did last year was, if you had an idea, they just had you add it to the form you filled out to participate.
Mm-hmm.
So like when we send out our entry forms or whatever sign up forms, we can be like, hey, if you have an idea, just give us a paragraph pitch or whatever, and then we can share those out with everyone.
Yeah. Go ahead, Conrad.
Yeah. So, the startup weekend does the Friday night pitching, right? And then you form teams, and then that's kind of the end of Friday. And then everybody kind of shows up Saturday, right? And we could, based on how many teams are formed, we can create that many Zoom links. Every team gets their own individual Zoom link that you could share between wherever people are located. I guess finding physical breakout spaces might be difficult. Then again, I don't know how important that would be. We might see how many actual teams there are. I just had this idea of I don't know. I guess I'm kind of way niched out as far as web and mobile. I don't even usually think about hardware projects or even data projects, But I was just thinking, if you came up build a Trello clone or build a, you had a couple project ideas that are super generic, but you encourage people to try a new language around it or something. I don't know. That's probably what I'm going to end up doing. If I had to come in with a project, I'm going to build a Trello clone using, Svelte and GraphQL and Elixir, because those are things that would challenge me, But I don't care about the idea. At the end, I'll probably throw away the code.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm very much in the same boat. I like that. So I think also there's another opportunity, right? One of the things that are really cool, and it's kind of silly, but I wish I had taken a photo hanging out with Vince when he came up or came down the other day, is just, kind of emphasizing, building relationships with people. So one of the things that I would also think would be cool is if we had the ideas posted ahead of time, like why not fly to Juneau for the weekend, or why not drive to Fairbanks for the weekend to go participate in a hackathon in person? And if you've got those ideas posted ahead of time, I think that would be super cool.
Yeah, I mean that'll work, which is why I was saying like on the sign up form, we could close sign up, I don't know, like a few days in advance or something, and then email out the ideas or something like that to everyone.
Okay, so let's do that. I think that's good. Let's close sign up on maybe October 9th. So 2 days before the hackathon.
Yeah, I think with hackathon, it's much better to have a team already formed with an idea before they even start, so that on Friday they can just get start coding.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. Let's maybe table that for a little bit later discussion so we can figure out how to facilitate that.
Okay, I have one more comment on the ideas thing.
Yeah.
So I wonder if I know we talked about maybe talking to other companies and seeing if they had needs, but I wonder if we could do something for the developer alliance, like redo, the developer page in Gatsby, or build a jobs board, or, I don't know. Could that be something that would be a hackathon project?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there are a bunch of things that would be cool. I think we should brainstorm about like what are our biggest needs, what tools could we get that would facilitate our group. I think we need to brainstorm some of those, but that's a great idea. So working backwards, so October 9th is the cutoff date for like people participating in the hackathon, or is that just for ideas to be submitted?
I'll say that's just ideas to be submitted, because we saw last year people just walked in and wanted to participate, and like I mean we don't
Okay.
want to encourage that.
Okay. So I think we need to have our budget raised by probably the 30th of September. And from what I can tell, we need between $4,500 and $5,500. And that's probably pretty bare bones, right? Like that's basic food and stuff. I think ideally we're 7,000 would probably be what we're looking for to pull this off and do it well.
That seems like a pretty big chunk of the budget, right?
Well, we're gonna have to raise a lot of this, and from what I gather, it's not terribly difficult to do that. So that's where really sort of having this buttoned up in a package where we can present it to companies and ask for sponsorship is really important. And knowing, how are we going to judge and what does the criteria look like? So you can go and say, hey, this is what we're doing. Will you sponsor us? And generally the telcos, $500 to $1,500 or $2,000 should be reasonable. So we need to also maybe come up with a list off the top of our heads of like what companies we could ask for sponsorship. So Arsh, I've got a few, I would say GCI, ACS, MTA. I would say Primera. I have some connections there. Let's see. Probably Providence. We might be able to talk to them. Pango Technology, Resource Data, or RDI. Does anybody else have ideas for people we could ask for sponsorship?
I have the hospital up here.
Okay.
You can ask them.
Is that Fairbanks Memorial or something, right? They call it?
Yeah, Fairbanks Memorial Hospital.
Okay. I would say we could probably ask somebody at Conoco. I feel like there are more people. Anybody else you can think of in Fairbanks who might be interested?
Well, I guess we'll throw out an ask. What about like what is it, the weed shops or anything like that?
No, that could actually be interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know about advertising or like what we would want to give them in return. I just wonder if that's a touchy subject because it's a school or like, you know, UA university sort of co-hosted event.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm sure there are some interesting problems in that space.
Or stuff like Tesoro maybe, or I don't know. Tesoro is locally, right, or is that in Washington?
I don't know.
Might be able to get Crowley.
Crowley would be a good one.
Yeah, my dad works there.
Sourdough, local company.
Yeah, what was that, Vince?
The Sourdough, local company, the gas company.
Oh, I haven't even heard of them.
Oh, they're up in Fairbanks.
Okay.
That could be potentially.
Yeah. Conroy, anybody in Juneau that you can think of?
Honestly, I don't know, but I could look around. I think we tried this at the startup weekend last year, and I don't think we got very far.
Okay.
I can look at that list of what we were planning on last time.
Yeah. Let's see. Oh, freeze again? Hello?
Yeah, you froze again.
Okay, how about Far Shore? Okay, so on Wednesday, September 4th, I'm going to send out another newsletter for the GoLang Boot Camp. On September 9th, we need to send out our monthly newsletter. We need to announce the hackathon, send out the Developer Alliance survey for 2019, and also have a request for hackathon ideas.
Can I add two more things to that list I just thought of?
For the sponsor list?
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
So one of them would be Roundup Steakhouse. I do their computer systems, but they also do little sponsorships in Fairbanks. And also another one would be the Manchu, which is a bar that's owned by like somebody, the same cousin or whatever. But they might be. He also his dad also owns like some liquor stores and also some other places. So that could be potential.
Okay. And also,
Who are these? Sorry. What steakhouse?
What's that?
What steakhouse is this?
No, Roundup Steakhouse.
Okay, Roundup. And what's the other one?
The other one's the Manchu.
Manchu. Okay.
Yeah. But there's some other business. I'll look into other businesses because I've done some computer work around here locally, so I can ask some people.
I also think Element Electric could be another good one. And maybe PDC Engineers. And then Assistive Technology of Alaska.
What about Computer Works? Is that just a Fairbanks, or is that in Anchorage too?
I don't know that I've heard of them.
Or do you think Computer Works would be interested in something like that? I don't know.
I don't know, but we could try.
Yeah.
Maybe
Alaska.
also. Go ahead, Vince.
So what about Alaska Connect? Or is that GVA?
No, it's Alaska Connect.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe like TexRUS as well. TEKSRUS. Okay, so I would also say that we probably need to continue promoting. So we need to send out another newsletter, maybe on the or another email on the 19th. And then on the 26th, we've got a meetup, so that's totally fine. And then we'll send out the monthly newsletter on October 2nd, and that should get us pretty well in line. That's pretty decent amount of marketing and emails. Something that also came up just talking with Vince is that I think right now, since all of these activities are kind of a heavy lift, I'm trying to keep the board fairly low touch, and I think doing once a month has been good, but moving just into September and October, we might need to meet a little bit more frequently to get some of these things done. So let's see, it's the 2nd today. I would like to check in again next week. So do we want to just take a poll in the Slack channel, or do we want to try and set a date now?
And checking in again Monday is fine with me. Next week.
Yeah, Monday works for me, but
Okay, so ideally by Monday, we've all had a chance to sort of digest and understand these ideas a little bit better. And then I would like to have space confirmed by the 9th. Is that doable?
that's doable.
Okay, Link, what about on your end? Is that doable? Yeah, still there, Link?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, that should be doable. I think that's a very reasonable time frame to get it figured out.
Okay. Yeah, that way we've got space sort of set up ahead of time. The other thing that I would like to do is sort of package up the vision behind the hackathon so that we can start promoting it and going to sponsors. And so I can sort of lead the charge on that. So let's plan on having a second board, or having our next meeting on. Do we want to do the 9th or the 10th?
And should 10th's good since we have deadlines in the 9th.
Okay, that works for me. Now on the 10th, the only caveat is I would have to do later in the afternoon. Is that okay with people?
Anything after 1 is fine for me.
It's fine.
Yeah, 10th is fine. I'd even be down for an evening one.
Okay, so on the 10th, what about like a maybe a late afternoon, like a 4 or a 5?
Fine with that.
Yeah, 5.
And actually,
5 would work a lot better.
Sorry, I'm just looking up something. I may have a conflict that day, or at least later in the evening. Okay, so I can do like a 4:30. I have to be somewhere at 6.
That works.
Cool.
Okay, so 4:30 on September 10th.
Sounds good.
Okay. I feel like we might have missed a couple things on the agenda. I know we are running a little bit over time. For the recurring expenses, I'm going to just add a few on here. So right now we've got DigitalOcean, which I guess technically we could move that over to Amazon Web Services and probably get a free droplet. Namecheap for the domain name, which I'm happy to transfer. We've got our G Suite. And I don't know that there's necessarily anything else with a recurring off the top of my head.
We talked about getting a Zoom, but it's not a big deal right now.
Okay. I think we can use Launch Alaska. But that, yeah, we'll figure that out. I'll pass that. I'll run that through Adam and see if we can get that. So real quick, let's just jump to the Golang bootcamp. We mentioned about, or I was talking to Vince, and the idea came to possibly rent like a single Airbnb for people from out of town. Is that something? I mean, Conroy, if you're coming up to participate, is that something you'd be interested, or would you prefer to have your own place?
I think that's an interesting idea. I'm not committed one way or the other. I'm not sure if I'm going to come yet, but I also stayed at that hostel, the Bent Prop, that's right by the Denina, and that place is super decent, and they are dropping to winter rates at this point, so I think it's even more decent per night. I'm talking about like $20, $25 per night type of decent.
Yeah, wow, that's super reasonable. Yeah, I also we had talked to somebody who reached out to us and mentioned that they didn't know if they would be able to make it because of the cost. And at the time, plane tickets were like 5,000 miles to get here. I don't know what they are now, but helping articulate that it may not be that difficult to get here. I think it's something that would be cool. But that being said, right, getting back to the idea that the purpose of the alliance is to get people together to hang out and work together, I think it would be kind of interesting if, there were people from Fairbanks and people from Juneau, and then everybody was staying in the same place. Vince, what are your thoughts?
I mean, that would work if you can find a place that big. A lot of the places I saw on Airbnb only fit up to 6 people, though. So
yeah,
a place that's going to fit a lot of people. That's going to be the.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like I don't even have like a good idea of how many people are coming to the boot camp.
You're going to get a 6-person house and stuff like 20 people in there or something.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen. I think we're going to end up with somewhere in the neighborhood of, between 4 and 8. I know there's 4 people from Valdez coming. They've probably booked their own stuff, but maybe that's just, we need to ask a survey question. Are you coming from out of town? And, and whatever else. And I think I can send out an email question via Eventbrite.
Yeah. But if they need a place to stay, we'll have to facilitate something. I think they might have to be on their own with the place to stay, though. Because if we try to do something like that, we'll have to reach out to hotels or Airbnb. It's a really muddy process to get that going, I guess. We wouldn't get,
Yeah, yeah, and maybe it's just a matter of we check in with the Bent Prop Hostel and just sort of try to set something up so people know where they can stay and have an idea of a decent place, but don't, but maybe we don't facilitate the whole thing. Just that is another layer of complexity that I think would be challenging for folks.
yeah.
I think that when I stayed there for that KDD, the hardest thing was when I wanted to get around town was the transportation. And the buses are great, but if there was like a carpool from there to wherever the Golang thing is, that'd be even better incentive.
Yeah. Okay, so let's do this then. Let's plan on just checking in with the Bent Prop Hostel and seeing if we can find a place that people are planning to stay at. And then setting up something for carpooling would be ideal. And probably that's just, we just make a Golang bootcamp channel. And I will do that right now. Okay, so I just made a channel. It's called Golang Bootcamp 2019. All right. Okay, so the next thing we should just touch on briefly is this idea of a welcoming committee for new students. We're not really doing much right now to sort of get incoming CS students or really any CS students involved specifically with the Developers Alliance. So that would be cool to sort of figure out a pipeline of like how do we do that? Do we go and talk to professors and see if we can just give a quick spiel in one of the courses, or do we try to do that through the CS Club? What is everybody's thoughts? Do we just put up posters?
I guess the biggest issue is what do they get out of it, because it's a time commitment and people are strapped on time. So just figuring out where do we make posters, where do we go through professors or departments or clubs, like what does the Alliance do? What can they get out of joining us would be a good thing.
Yeah. I also think that this is potentially a slightly harder sell for college students because they've already got a community. But the issue is once you graduate, what does your community look like? What are your options for jobs? And so to me, it's like we need to articulate that the purpose of the Alliance is to exist outside of school and help get you sort of in that professional community earlier.
I think if we could get in front of a class and actually give a spiel, that would be amazing. Posters is an amazing idea. We can look at, but as far as like onboarding, I don't know what that entails, whether you assign somebody to like an existing person in the group and there's like, this is your new mentor, or if you, I don't know, if you like have ever been a part of Toastmasters or something, right? There's a person in charge of membership and they, reach out to people who haven't attended, or they help orient people. And I think you actually do partner up with somebody. Like, hey, this is so-and-so. They can answer any of your questions about the Alliance because they've been in it for like a year or whatever. We might look at that and what other organizations have done, because that's like an exponentially growing group, right?
Okay.
So can I mention one thing about the Golang class on like Friday? So I'm looking at least if people flying from Fairbanks to Anchorage, they're gonna get there by 8:40 a.m. It's like the earliest they'll get. So they might be a little late on Friday or something like that flying in.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, and we might need to have people coming in Wednesday night if possible, but I totally understand people trying to get in Friday morning. Let me think a little bit on that. We're a little bit at the whim. I mean, maybe what we do is have Bill sort of recap on some of the basic Golang principles for an hour or two, and then we really dive deep starting at 11 or something.
Yeah, that's possible. I mean, there's also the possibility of arriving, try to get people to arrive Thursday night or something, night before.
That's ideal. Yeah, sorry, I said Wednesday. Ideally, people get here Thursday night, and then everybody shows up on Friday morning ready to go.
Right.
Okay, well, I think that covers most stuff. We didn't really get too deep into the welcoming committee. I would be okay reaching out to Kenrick and just saying, hey, can we give a spiel to a couple of the classes about what the Developers Alliance is? I don't know. Is anybody in a position to do that in Fairbanks?
Yeah, I can do that.
Okay. So yeah, maybe we should try to do that this week. Is this week the first week of classes, or was that last week?
That was last week.
Okay, so would this week, would that be a good time to do that? That way we can just sort of get it out there, get it done?
Yeah,
Okay.
at least on my side.
All right. So I can do the same. I'll reach out to Kenrick. So does everybody have their deliverables for next week?
Yes.
Do I have any?
Yeah. So Conrad, can you handle figuring out space for Juno?
Yeah. And we'll see. Maybe this other contract isn't going to get signed, so we might have the whole space. Maybe we can
Okay.
use the lounge. We'll figure out something.
Okay.
I would want to start advertising on like flyers around Juno and putting like a Facebook event down here. Because I said 3, but there was, I forget how many at the startup weekend, but probably 25-ish. I don't know how many developers were there, but I think there's a bigger community than have been showing up at the meetup so far.
Yeah.
So,
I'll add that to my list. That's my last thought.
okay. So as far as like up in Fairbanks, I'll talk to some corporate people up here, approach some businesses and see what I can get. But also if I can get a flyer or a copier or something like that, I can put flyers up around town.
Okay.
But first, I'll approach the hospital because it's easier. I know my way around there, so it'll be easier for me to approach the IT people there and see what they want to do.
Okay. Yeah, one thing I do feel a little bit bad about is I totally spaced it because this fell under board meeting as opposed to hackathon meeting. Dave Nespoli had talked about participating, so he's somebody I probably need to individually reach out to. Okay, so that looks pretty good. Link, what does your schedule look like in terms of reaching out and talking to people about the Developers Alliance?
He left, but in the chat
Oh, okay. Okay, no worries.
he said he'll talk with people about it this week in the chat.
Okay, sounds good. All right. Well, I feel pretty good about this. Yeah, does anybody else have anything?
Nope.
All right. Arsh, could you add a thing to the calendar for 4:30 next Tuesday?
Yep.
Cool. All right. Well, I would say we'll meet next Tuesday, and then I don't know if we'll have 1 week or 2 weeks before the next meeting. I kind of feel like for the next few weeks, it might be prudent for us to meet once a week just to pull off the hackathon. And then we already know we're going to have a break and sort of ease up on the gas pedal after the hackathon in October. I'm going to be headed out of town for 2 weeks at the end of the month of October. So, I know this is a big undertaking for people, but hopefully we all realize it's just a big push for now. And then we can all take a little bit of time away and come back after that. So just putting this in everybody's brain, I am definitely starting to see the effect of people hanging out together, which I think is super important and really awesome. And so when we come back, I think we're having a lot of really structured time getting people together. And somebody had suggested a social in January, but I would also like to mention that during the KDD Data Science Conference, we sort of just invited everybody to get together for a happy hour. And we actually had a really, I would say, decent turnout for not putting any advertising or any work into it. So maybe that's something that we also look into doing, whether it's just, hey, anybody from UAF, we're meeting at the pub on campus, or anybody from from Anchorage, we're meeting at the boardroom or whatever, just to hang out. So I think that's something we should maybe look at for the docket come October, November, maybe Christmas time, since we're going to be taking some time off. Maybe we just get together and hang out. Anyways, I feel pretty good about the direction of things. So thanks for everybody's time. Thanks for sticking in, even though we ran a little bit late today. And yeah, any other final closing questions, comments, concerns?
Nope. I'm all good.
All set.
I'm
All
fine.
right. Cool. All right. Thanks, guys. And yeah, I'll talk to you in the channel and next Tuesday. See you then.
Awesome.
All right, see y'all.
Bye.